Okay, Renown. It's time to diligently farm. Let's do this. I could do this all day.
I always have to do everything myself. Patch notes. Make my world crest grow!
How can I defeat this? I can't fill a bar that big. No one can. What are you? Oh, smells like Torghast. We're in the open world. Fill that fucking bar. Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally arrived. We have our first look at the entire endgame for your casual playing experience in Dragonflight. And I know many of you are concerned about this because they have decided to remove all the mandatory things that they had you do in the past. So used to logging in with a laundry list of chores. We've got to head to the mall, we've got to collect our souls, we've got to go to Corthia, we've got to go to Zereth Mortis. This has got to get our legendary items, all that kind of stuff. They're taking that away, as many people, including myself, left the game over this stuff. It just sucked all the fun out of just logging in and doing whatever the hell you wanted to do because you had this list of stuff to go into. This is going to be an awkward phase. We have to be clear about this. There are people who have never played World of Warcraft without experiencing this and not knowing, well, what do I do when I log in? And thankfully, and I truly believe this, with the rising popularity of the classic versions of World of Warcraft where those things did not exist, I think more of the player base is ready to accept a version of the game where you get to choose and set your own goals. And that is exactly what they're trying to do in Dragonflight, and now we have a chance to play it. They have given us all the zones to play in. You can now level all the way up to 70. You can see exactly what to do. You can get all your talent trees. We don't have every single talent tree in the game yet, but they're mostly here, and they are still looking, seemingly if you believe the leaks, to have this game out round about November. So we'll see whether that plays out. The Race to World First guys are a little bit... Are we going to have to raid on Christmas again? Are we going to see the last boss wearing a Christmas hat like we saw with Side and Athreus? Maybe. So we've got a lot to cover here, and as you can probably tell from our goofy intro, there is some stuff that is my first negative impression of Dragonflight, so be prepared for that. The first thing is your casual gearing experience. What is that going to look like once you get through these leveling zones, which are fine, and then begin actually gearing your character? Well, the way you're going to do this is through elemental storms. Periodically throughout Dragonflight, these storms will appear. Now, the exact occurrence rate and rarity of things is definitely in question, but let me explain what happens. You will essentially travel to an area and you're just going to grind mobs. Now, you just saw a really goofy intro that we made because we definitely did not understand what this system was when it was in place last week, and now we've had some changes. In fact, we found an awesome area. Masses upon masses of Torghast powers were dropping. They were even better than the powers you found in Torghast, becoming monstrously huge, super tiny, infinite crit rate, infinite mastery. They're very temporary, so only people like Rex Troy would be rubbing themselves at using them somewhere else in the game, but it turns out they're not actually linked at all to the elemental storm that was taking place. Our initial impression of this system was that, oh, they're going to make them mob grinds, because that's all you do. You kill mobs there and they will drop a currency, which you can then convert into very, very good gear. Slight note on that one, though. They're currently 40 item levels higher than what drops in heroic dungeons. They actually are in place with what would be just under normal mode raiding. It's blue quality gear. You can get epic quality gear, but that's going to be a little longer in the tooth. But you can go down to these Primal Elemental Storms and just grind mobs for 2 hours or so. They're now up to 3 hours of being up and come out with a really high set of gear. Not sure what's happening with heroic dungeons. I hope they haven't decided to just make them pointless. Heroic dungeons probably just need a little bump up, but the item levels have been a little iffy in there so far. Anyway, let's go back to these Torghast powers. It was so fun. This, in fact, I'm re-recording this video because we said this is perfect. If you're going to have people do some of the most monotonous gameplay in the world, which is just kill health bars in a group, round and round in circles, while they respawn, kill them again, just to loot the mobs to collect a currency, then what you need to be doing, certainly in 2022, is actually disguising that with some fun, interesting things going on. And the Torghast powers were amazing for this. People were shouting, oh, if I open my map, I set off a bomb that detonates the whole area. It's super fun. And when I was doing that for a good couple of hours, I was purely focused on being as humongous as I could be. I didn't really care how many mobs we were killing, totally disguised it, and I had a blast. It's totally unrelated to the Primal Storms, unfortunately. And in fact, Blizzard went ahead and nerfed the anima power drop rate in that area this week. When we went back to check it before putting this video out for you, yeah, they're dropping way, way less now. You can barely keep them running unless you're in a huge group and you get lucky. And it's like, you kind of... Fun detected was definitely a thing that was going on in my mind. But this then brings us back to the actual elemental storms. This is the mechanic. What are they? They're simply storms that give some sort of modifier to the area, and it's a negative thing. So if it's the earth storm, then massive tremors will spawn under your feet and they will kill you. Similar with the fire one, huge eruptions will occur. If it's the wind one, giant swirly storms will appear. All this kind of stuff. So far, what we haven't seen is any positive. And that's why I really hoped the Torghast power system was just one of the ideas that was going to cloud, disguise this mob grinding element into something really interesting and fun. That seems to be taken away. So my feedback on this, again, not being super negative about it, my feedback would be, Blizzard, what you did in that happened to be coincidental area where you had an elemental storm in the same place that these Torghast style powers were dropping was fantastic. It made it so much more fun. And we genuinely believed from the bottom of our hearts that the other storms that were taking place in other areas of the Dragon Isles were simply not bugged or hadn't had their twist or interesting disguise system implemented yet. Now, it has turned out to be the opposite. So my feedback would be, do something like that over there. If you're going to put these earth debuffs in, these eruptions and these tremors, then shouldn't I also be getting some benefits? Some kiss curse going on here? Perhaps I spawn earth elementals or gain some sort of huge buff in that area that makes actually farming mobs endlessly grinding something a bit more interesting and fun, and not something that was taken from a game made 20 years ago, because that would be a good idea. Now, that's the Primal Elementals. Seemingly right now in the alpha, they're spawning very regularly, even to the point where you can have 2 or even 3 up at the same time. How often that will take place when it goes live, I don't know, but it is one of the most efficient and quickest ways of gearing your characters up. And we'll come back to what I estimate your gearing path will look like later in the video. Let's move on to your other casual content then. This is going to be the new Renown reputation system, all right? So don't picnic because you're hearing Renown and it's like, oh God, is all my powers and things locked behind this? No, there are no powers in Dragonflight. And a really crucial part of what we're about to talk about is that this is not mandatory. There's no power locked behind this. There is some gear to get, but it's more for the cosmetic side of things. And by the time you would grind the Renown out to acquire these epic item rewards, you likely have replaced them from some other source, unless this is entirely your only content. Remember, you've got professions, the gearing system we just talked about with the elemental storms. All that exists in perpetuity, so by the time you get here with the Renown unlocks, it's really more for the cosmetic style of things. So we've got 4 factions to deal with here. We've got the Dragonscape Expedition, we've got the Valdrakken Accord, we've got the wonderful Iskari Tuskar, and we've got the Marut Centaur, who are going to be running across the Unaran Plain in these proud races. Now, what are they all about? This is optional content. Be clear on that. It's optional content. But what we can see is all the Renown rewards, and they're kind of interesting. They've really tried to make them individual, give them a good piece of character. The Marut Centaur, for example, you will gain yourself a big dog companion who will come with you, or a nice bird that will come with you, and give you massive buffs throughout the zone. They're a proud hunting race. They're nomadic. Their camp will move around from place to place. And along with each of the factions, you'll have some sort of interactable major event. So if you think of the Maw, don't think of the Maw. Change that. think of an area where big events took place periodically, like a weekly event where there was some sort of invasion, some sort of big thing that you were looking forward to that would give you a nice, big, juicy, epic chest reward at the end of it. Each of them comes with something like that. The Ascari Tuskar come with the Community Feast, which gives you an enormous buff with huge versatility bonus for you and somebody nearby, and heals you constantly. Absolutely amazing while mob grinding if you're going to do Primal Elemental Storms. The Valdrakken get this Storming the Citadel attack on there. We'll talk a little bit more in detail on that in a minute. And the Onarans get this wonderful, wonderful Great Hunt. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. So you get each of these events to go on. Now, here's the first issue I have with Dragonflight. I like the look of this. We can look right now at all the Renown rewards you're going to get, and some of them are really interested. The Ascari Tuskar, for example, unlocks some harpoons, some adventures that go on in the ice. They've had their story stolen. They're storytellers sitting in their camps telling all these old tales of wild fish that they caught, and they have a lot of fishing things involved with them. And you would think that their Renown unlock would involve those things. Going out and hunting that Leviathan that's lurking out in the ice, or some beast that was alive during the magmad waters near Valdrakken. All these kind of things would make a lot of sense for the Ascari Tuskar and would be an interesting way of immersing you into their Renown reward system, which all reflects onto that. Similarly, with the last video we made, where I was very interested in the Pokemon Snap stuff and on the Dragon Scale Expedition and the rock climbing. This sounded fun. Would we get lots of difficult rock climbing challenges, which would unlock Renown, which gives you more rock climbing tools and seemingly indicates that you'd be able to do party-wide stuff along with those? Would we be hunting down rare beasts just to photograph them, as that's what they like to do? Creatures in their natural habitat, recording what's happening in the Dragon Isles, this new information that we're getting. And of course, with the Maruk Centaur, going on wild hunts. Some beast has attacked a village. We need to track it down. We need to find the bait. We need to find the footprints, and then we need to hunt it down. Perhaps there's even a hunting board. I'm not talking about Final Fantasy here, okay? Everybody says that when they hear that. But some sort of challenges that have been set down when you arrive at the camp that day. And unfortunately, there's none of that, which is a real pisser and actually depresses me no goddamn end. All right, let's talk about the first hiccup. I'm probably not going to do any of that content as it stands right now, and I just made it sound really exciting because that's what I envision, and it does have so much potential. Why? They seemingly have realistically locked this behind just grinding very atypical Legion-esque world quests. And I don't really know why, other than maybe they ran out of development time. It's so frustrating because the variety, and they seem to have rolled back the idea of World Quest 2.0. We've gone back to very Legion style, BFA style stuff, which is basically just fill the bar over and over again, right? The variation on what you do to fill the bar, sometimes you click things and kill things, sometimes you just kill things. And it's over and over again, and they're not even related, or they're related extremely loosely to the factions that they are representing. It seems to be almost randomly generated. And these are easily the most efficient, normal way of gaining the reputation you need, because you do earn reputation, which gives you renown levels, to actually access this cool content that is locked away from you. And it seems very, very separated. One thing does not appear to lead to the other. And that's a real shame. Now, I want to be clear on this. I don't have a problem with world quests. But in this instance, I would certainly detach world quests from being the reputation source and simply have things, smaller things and quick things that each of the factions offers you per day because they want to gate it, right? Ultimately, they want to gate this off. They do not want you grinding to Renown 30 very, very quickly and being like, well, I've got nothing to do now. They want a slow and steady pace to get there. You can still do that while making this an immersive, interesting, and logical piece of content that ties to these people. If you put this arbitrary content wall in the way, which is how I see it, because why would the Ascari Tuskar give a flying fish for me to go and kill elementals in Valdrakkis? It makes no sense. It's just stupid. And that's what I see. And a lot of course, as we all know, world quests are just repeated content that you've had already during the leveling process. They're just arbitrary, mindless, monotonous content. And for most people, it's boring. Now, there are a lot of people out there, when we talked about this, who like, I like world quests. That's fine too. And world quests should be there as a good source of filler gear, some gold, maybe even occasional rep tokens is fine too. Dragon Isles resources, so you can actually spec out things like your Maruk companion needs Dragon Isle resources to talent spec it out. World Quest should exist for little bits of recipe items, things like that, resources that a general player would use or things they want to sell in the auction house. I think that's fine. There's absolutely a place for World Quests, and there are lots of people who enjoy them, and I'm certainly not suggesting take that away. My feedback would be here, don't gate off this seemingly, and again, I'm not going to grind this out because it's so tedious. I've done it for 2 days, and it was awful. It was just absolutely awful. Just going through the map like I did every day in BFA, every day in Legion, just grinding out this brainless, mindless content because I want to unlock this. It's gated behind this weird wall. And let's come back to these big events. Let's take Storming the Citadel, which me and Chris took part in today. It was a multi-stage event, which sounded really interesting, but it was 4 sections. Stage 1 was fill the bar. I couldn't believe it. As soon as it started, it was like, okay, fill the bar. Now, okay, I can let it slide because we were setting up a base camp for assault. Okay, we're building tents and things, but you're just clicking on things and grinding enemies until you do that. Then we did that, and we got our NPCs in then because we're storming the Citadel. Step 2 was fill the bar. It was kill all the enemies in the area so we can then proceed. So of our 4-stage process here, we had 2 fill the bar quests already. Now, I will say they did put down some items on the floor, which did a lot of damage, like molten buckets of lava that you could throw at things and things that stunned big enemies. They did do that. They did recommend 5 people for this. We did it 2-man without any issue at all. 1-man would have been very difficult, but the NPCs do help you. They run around and you can heal them up and keep them helping. So some characters will definitely be able to solo, but for 2 players, it was a breeze. Stage 3 then, seemingly was the final boss. And we were very confused by this. It's like, is this it? Is this all it is? And it's a boss on the corridor. However, he's also surrounded by friendly NPCs for us. So all you had to do was kick him. So Blizzard, you might want to fix this, is you pull him, move him 10 yards, and the NPCs just kill it. And you win. Okay, I know this stuff is not supposed to be hard because it's for everybody, but watching the NPCs just melt it down to the floor is not that fun either. And then, thankfully, another phase popped up where we had to actually go into the Citadel. And I was excited. It's like, okay, there must be something inside. And unfortunately not. It was another boss. And hilariously, you could also pull this guy just outside of the building, and the NPCs just killed it as well. And that was the end. That was the end. That was the Storming the Citadel that I grinded my world quests to unlock and get involved in. So if it's going to be the big weekly event, it's something fun. And you've done this in the past, which is why it's so strange. So strange, because some of the feedback I got while talking about this, and yes, I know I have a personal hatred of fill the bar stuff because I find it very monotonous. I understand that, and some people don't mind it. They like a kind of mindless gameplay loop. That's something okay for them. They want a time waster that they can chill out, it's not too difficult, and they can watch TV, or they can watch streams, or whatever it is. I get that, but my response to that is, there's no reason for this to be boring. If you're gonna make something like this, make it interesting, make it fun, like you did in the past. You've made things where we went through portals like we did in the Maw. When those assaults were going on, we got to do all kinds of silly stuff to mix in with the kill 10, kill 15 things. Something to give it a bit more interest. The same story then, is this, oh, you're probably thinking, is this just this Storming the Citadel? No, unfortunately not. The great hunts that we went on in the Anaran Plains, you would think that was going to be a great hunt. These are hunters. Proud hunters. Their history is really rich. Their story is good. You get their companions. You want to hunt something down with these planeswalkers who are running across the place looking for camps to be set up and welcoming you into their tribe only after you've proven yourself to them. 7-stage event. 2 fill the bars. Kill the big boss in the middle. 3 more fill the bars afterwards. And you're done. The idea is there. And this stuff, at least for me, should write itself. Because you have these proud hunters with a whole open plains zone. So why are we not stalking a prey, looking for tracks, seeing what it's dealt with before, luring it, doing something along those lines like a hunter would do, and then perhaps fighting something fierce or vicious or hidden, something that maybe claws itself up from the earth, this mysterious creature. It's a fantasy game. You could do all that stuff. Instead, you kind of kill a relatively small turtle sat by a beach, and that's your gameplay. And it's a little bit of a shame. It feels like a letdown, as there's so much more locked behind here. And I've got to be honest with you guys, I did not grind this out. Why? I have better things to do, and I think that's what people are going to run into. I could spend the next 2 hours filling the bars across the map day after day in order to get my next Renown level or part of the way there so I can unlock the cool stuff, the new storylines, new stuff for my big pet. I can get new equipment, new rock climbing equipment. All that kind of stuff is locked behind these factions, and it looks really fun. But the road to get there is paved with monotony and boredom. And that's the stuff that makes no sense to me, because you've done better in the past, you can do better, and I would love to see you do that. Please accept this as feedback. This is the kind of thing that players like me, who you're hoping are going to come back and play full time, want to enjoy. I do. But I'm not going to sit there and do BFA again and Legion again, where we were clearing the map of World Quest round and round and round and round and round in a circle. It's been years of it, and it's just not going to happen for players like me. For some players, this is totally fine, but for players like me, this is the first thing, the Dragonflight, that's made me go, and it's not mandatory. Super clear on that. Doesn't stop me raiding, doesn't stop me doing dungeons, but I'm in that weird position that many of us find ourselves in sometimes. Like, yes, I kind of want to check out all your Renown systems. They sound really fun. But with this wall in the way of mindless day-to-day, over and over again content, remember, like 30 levels, 2 to 3 days a level, there is a weekly that if you gain 3,000 rep, which would be doing World Quest, they'll give you 200 bonus to everything else, but it's still in the same vein of being locked behind here. So I'd simply say more options. Can we get it from dungeons? Can we get it from content that we enjoy? Something like that. If there's no way of implementing a good, interesting storyline to go along with these factions that we could do on a daily basis, then perhaps there's some other sources we can go from for people who do not want the monotonous grind of World Quests other than accessing this content. It is very similar for a non-casual play like a raid or a Mythic Plus, is that you needed to grind out World Quests in order to access a raid. Like, it doesn't marry up. It's the two are not synergized. And I understand the gating process, but it could do with being a little different. So from what I can tell then, coming back to it, what does your gearing process look like once you cap in Dragonflight? Well, seemingly for me, if you're, say, an advanced player, you're probably going to get to level cap, then you're going to be looked to trying to access Mythic 0 in your first week or so. Once you've done that round, which is then weekly locked, you're probably going to go straight to the Elemental Storms and start working through those to just grind out all the bits you're missing. And you could do that very, very efficiently. Now, that obviously leaves normal and heroic dungeons kind of left in the dust. Some normal modes for leveling, sure, but I'm not sure where the dungeons fit in right now. If I was to be efficient, that's what I would do. And if I was not an advanced player, or I didn't have access to a group of friends, I don't see how I'm not just going straight to an Elemental Storm, joining a group in the Pug Finder, and just grinding mobs for a couple of hours and having a full set of 380 gear. I'm not sure why I'm not doing that. So some reward structure would need some adjustment there to make that work. Let's talk about the dungeons though, because despite the fact that I've just said those heroic dungeons might not seemingly have a place right now, the two that we got released the last couple of weeks are actually really, really interesting and fun. So we got the Dragonflying dungeon. You've probably heard about this. If you've not, you get the entire Anaran Plains as a zone, and you get to Dragonfly in there. They put some wind currents up there for some of you who might not be great with Dragonflying or have a weaker dragon if you've not unlocked the talents. That allows you to swoosh around the entire zone, flying from boss to boss to boss. This is one of those curious dungeons where if they were to remove the Dragonflying aspect, this dungeon would be considered absolute trash. I'm telling you right now, it would be considered complete garbage because there's just pockets of enemies and the rest of the Anaran Plains is dead. There's nothing in it. We'll come back to that in a sec as well. So you just literally fly to the mob, you kill 4 things which activates the boss. 2 of the bosses do exactly the same process, repeated. So you'll kill this boss, and then you'll zoom up, kill 4 things, which activates the boss, and then you'll fly to the next boss. Trash and the bosses only exist in their little areas. Outside of that is completely dead. When we finished this dungeon, the first thing we did, and thinking back to Caverns of Time, if you remember this, the attack on Durnhold, was went and explored the zone. What secrets are beheld within this giant zone? Well, I just said it then. It's empty. There's nothing there. So I would really give some feedback here is, yes, the Dragonflight does exist and the dungeon works. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really good. I can't look at a dungeon and say, well, if you remove this aspect, it would be trash. It has that aspect. And Dragonflying does make it very fun. You guys swooping across the plains into the new bosses makes it great. It's really fun, and I'm looking forward to Mythic Plus with how the routes and stuff go. But Blizzard is really good about altering their routes using their M+ affixes. Really hope to see that in here, because what we don't want in this zone is like it's a standard route and everybody just goes that route. So it loses the Dragonflying flavor very quickly and becomes a gimmick. That would suck. So what I would also love to see here, and we've seen this already in several of the Dragonflight dungeons, is profession modifiers. So lots of the dungeons, if you have alchemy or enchanting or engineering, like we saw in Court of Stars and Legion, if you interact with something and you have a high enough profession, you can change the outcome, open new shortcuts, do things like that. You have an entire open zone to mess around in, right? So why is the blacksmith not over there? Maybe he does something. Why is there not a mining expedition going on? And that way, with the speed and efficiency of Dragonflying, if your group is good enough, you can actually make extra stops and utilize this massive open space that you've created. And I think that would add a lot more flavor and a lot more interest, especially if it changes around a bit and makes it more interesting. I know they will use the affixes like emissaries and things to alter the routes at some point, but it'd be nice to utilize this open space instead of it being like, you know, a big, vast, empty wasteland. Our latest dungeon, lurking down into the depths. This is a really interesting. And again, another super quick dungeon with the most punishing, god-awful run back in the history of mankind. Like, I can't even process that this run back exists. If you wipe on the third boss right now and we did not find an alternative, if it exists, then more fool me. You're talking like a 6-minute run back or something ridiculous. It's so painful. It really is. So some shortcuts, something would be nice here to alleviate that. If it exists, make it more obvious, please, because we couldn't find it to allow this to happen. But the bosses themselves, relatively simple, but again, coming back to most dungeons, Mythic Plus is really going to up this. What we can see in Heroic and happen several times is you have to intentionally stop doing damage to let the bosses do anything. And we did do that with the first boss a couple of times, is because you could just kill the boss and you could just, it didn't do anything. So looking forward to the Mythic version, but each boss has potential. I like the big froggy boy hopping at you, trying to get you. I like our big lumbering guy who puts energy shields up and then electrocutes the whole floor and frost blasts. We did have wipes here. As I said, we had to do a run back, and yeah, some of the mechanics are a little nasty once they do go off. So we'll keep an eye on that one for what's going to be coming next. But alternatively, the next best thing that I've seen Dragonflight Alpha in this big open release of seeing everything is actually the multiplayer Dragonflying races. They're so fun. You actually get to do laps. They queue people up in order to get in. It's super cool. It's very enjoyable to see that people are all flying together, because one of the things that me and the team internally have been talking about, even this morning before I spoke to you here, is that we really hope that what they're aiming for, and I think this is their vision, is that the cities and the towns look like something like Dragon Peak from Dark Souls 2, where the dragons are actually perched like gargoyles from some gothic city on the hills, on the sides of buildings, looking down, because it will really give that feel of being in the Dragon Isles. Now, their hardware limitation might screw this up. As you know, Dragonflying makes you zoom past and all that kind of stuff, and you don't even see them happen. But it's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, adding this vision, and having a little glimpse of that in this multiplayer Dragonflying racing was super nice. All right, so we'll come back to you if they make any more changes, but that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next update. Bye-bye. All right, there's only one take at this, so.
Right.
You ready?
Yeah, give it the beat.
All right, 3, 2. Fill that fucking bar. Tell me we got it.
Yeah, we did lose you at the end, like I could see your head.
I landed right on my ribs on a corner. Different facial noises.
Okay.
Right, 3, 2.